Hello, welcome to today's lesson. Today, we will be talking about output in real life. In this session, we've talked about some output devices that are available. We know that output devices take digital signals inside a computer and it changes them into useful forms. Some of the output devices make the digital content understandable. Some are displayed so that you can see. Some are printed as hard copy, and some are made into sounds. Other output devices uses digital signals inside a computer to control a device or make an object. So we are going to make a review of these output devices in real life. Let's first talk about some output device that we use in our real life, like screens. When you study the screen of a mobile device, that is the one we normally call the touch screen, and they can be found on mobile phones or tablets. The screens or the touch screen as both an input device and an output device. Depending on the device you are using, the screen can be small or big. And they've made it in such a way that they have apps on it in which you can use. So that's about the screens. We also have printer, which is a hard copy. Printers take in input and brings an output on a hard copy. So for example, when you want to send your examinations are normally on hard copies, and that's printers. When you come to the manufacturer sector, we have the CAD and the CAM, and these aid the 3D printer. So if you want to design something in 3D, you can make use of the CAD software to make these things. And there's an advantage. It helps you make different designs without the actual design. So all that you have to do is to make the design on the computer. There's no need for you to go and get the materials and make the design. You can check its strength, and in case the device you want to make is being put under stress, you can also fit them to see how they work. So this makes the card usage of the card and the cam very, very important in the world of in the manufacturing world. So when you feel that you are ready, then that is when you can send it to the 3D printer for it to be used. Okay, so you are done with the hardware. For now, we are done with the hardware. So let's do a quick recap of whatever we discussed under hardware. Let's do a quick recap of whatever we discussed under hardware. A lot of things to talk about. So hold on, whilst it's still loading. Okay, it's ready. So we are going to talk about hardware. You all know that a hardware can be broken into the inputs and the outputs, but we will start with the input device. Exactly. In this chapter, we will start with the input device, and we know that the input devices are used to input data to the computer. The input devices are used to input data into the computer, and the most popular ones we all know is the keyboard and the mouse, and we know how they work already. So the big question is, what then is an input device? When you talk about an input device, is a device that converts data. And the data that we are talking about are images, text, numbers, and audios. So it changes the data into digital signals so that it can be processed by a computer. So there are different types of data that we are going to talk about in this session. The first one will be the input of text data into the key by using the keyboard into the computer. And we'll talk about the input of the positional data using the mouse or the computer mouse. Okay. When you talk about the keyboard is used to input text characters. And the text characters are the letters and the punctuation marks. The computer uses different binary codes to represent each text character, as we learned in the ASCII. If you've forgotten about the ASCII, let's refresh our minds. So let's quickly refresh our minds on the ASCII so that we will know exactly what I'm talking about. So as you can see here, you can see that the characters have different numbers, being it a hexadecimal, being it a binary. Okay, this one doesn't contain binary. Being it a hexadecimal, you can see that the numbers assigned to each of them is quite different. So when you look at capital A, you can see that its hexadecimal is 41. But when it comes to small a, you can see that its hexadecimal is 61. So that's the ASCII. So this helps the computer to differentiate between the capital letters and the small letters. So as is being said, the keyboard has a range of buttons or keys, and each one is being represented by a special binary number code. So keys for the text are labeled with their characters. So each key is being connected to there is an electrical connection. So when you press, the electrical connection is being ignited so that the electricity can pass through. So when that thing happens, a binary code is sent down wires, or it can be a wireless connection to the processor. So inside the processor, as I talk about the ASCII code will see that, oh, we've sent, let's say, number 61. Then the ASCII code would change it back to the text character. So on the keyboard, this is what is happening. On the you see the letter on the keyboard. Yes, you press. Inside the processor, when immediately you press the keyboard, as for you, the human being, you see the character, but it's not a character. So when you press it, it goes through the wire, it goes to the processor changes it back to the letter for you to see. So the in between the processor, in between the keyboard and the monitor, that's in the middle is where the processor changes it to. So that's how the keyboard works. So that's the keyboard. So the keyboard is not only used to send text. There are additional keys on the keyboard that guides you or controls the computer, what the computer does. For example, is the Control, Alt, and the Delete. Usually, when you press these things together, it gives you the chance to restart the computer. Yeah, you can see the shutdown menu here. And if I want to restart, I'll just restart, but I'm not going to restart. So it gives you the option of restarting the computer. Okay, that's that for the keyboard. Let's talk about the computer mouse. The computer mouse is used to input positional data. This is self-explanatory. You see, the computer mouse controls the position of the pointer on the computer screen. So when you move the mouse, the position of the pointer moves in the same direction. For the olden types of mouse, they used to have balls in it. That's they have a rolling ball. So as you move, there is something in it in which it will take the movement and it will send it to the processor that same way and it will tell the position. But nowadays, the computer mouse uses light sensors to detect movement. And that's how it's like nowadays. We also have other positional devices, such as the trackball. The laptop, what is on the laptop is not called the computer mouse. It's rather called the touch pad. We also have the game console for those who like playing games. And normally we use the trackball. Those who don't find it comfortable using the mouse, some people have that feeling. The touchpad is for those who use the laptop, and the game console is for the gamers. But all these has its advantages and disadvantages. The computer, the computer mouse and the keyboard are manual devices. This means that the data is entered by hand, and it has many advantages. They are easy and very convenient to use. They are sometimes it comes mostly with the computer. You don't go out to buy unless it's bought, and they can be used to do a whole lot of things. At times, manual devices are slow to use. Human beings can easily make mistakes using manual devices, such as typing error, and they can be tiring and stressful to use. Let's test ourselves. What code is used to represent text characters in the computer system? Can you name two codes that are used to represent text characters in a computer system? Can you name three keys on the keyboard that are not used to send text characters and explain what they are used for? What type of data is sent to the computer from a mouse? Okay. Identify two advantages and two disadvantages of entering data into the computer with a keyboard. This is your first assignment. Thank you. Welcome to the next lesson. Let's talk about touch screens. Now, most desktop and laptop computers have keyboard and mouse. But have you ever asked yourself, what about the handheld devices, such as the smartphones and tablets? What do they use? Yes, they use the touch screen. So in this session, we are going to talk about the touch screen. What does the touch screen does? It performs double functions. The touch screen is an output device that displays information for the users, and it's an input device that allows the user to make selections from the display, including selecting characters to enter. So that's basically what the touch screen does. So using a touch screen, you can usually literally touch the screen wherever you want to touch, and the screen will be able to detect the presence of your finger. These tools sends a positional signal to the processors. There are three types of touch screens. Okay. We have the resistive screen. The resistive screen has two layers that conduct electricity. So when you touch it, the two screens are being put together. So one is up and one is underneath it. So when you touch the top one, when immediately you touch, it pushes the top one to the second one, the one underneath it, and they are being pushed together. So this allows electricity to pass through them. And this type of screen is not expensive, and it can be damaged easily. Okay, we have the capacitive screen that uses conductive strips, and they are made up of transparent sheets, and they are being put together. So an electrical charge on the screen changes when you touch it. So the screen checks whether the strip on either side, when you put your finger on it, has been charged. And at least the capacitive screen is much better and stronger, and it gives you better image than the resistive screen. We also have the infrared screen, and this is made up of two sets of invisible beams projected at the right angles across the screen, making a grid. So when you put your finger on it, it breaks the beams, it breaks the connection of the light. So this is how the computer will detect the position. So yes, so that's that about these three screens. We also have the mobile devices, and they have their screens. They are all input and output, and it contains its own keyboard. The screens are small. At times typing it because the screens are small somehow. We also have the interactive whiteboard. It's a large touch screen and normally used in schools and meetings, and can write on it with a special pen. Yeah. So that's the interactive whiteboard. So we'll end here and we'll continue next time.